We all know the world done gone crazy, so we may as well talk some Mark Twain tweets. Um, you may remember previously I was talking with the good Dr. Tyler Blake, a professor at Mid America Nazarene. Um, and let me get that title right. PhD in interdisciplinary studies, American Lit, and American History. Am I right?
That's right.
Mm. And freshly retired. Is that the right term?
Yeah, decided to go ahead and call it a career this year.
Well, that can be an emotional turn. You seem pretty composed. How fresh is it?
It just it feels like time. This has been a rough year to be an English professor with the COVID and just the cancel culture and everything. And I'm a
Mm,
little bit of a classicist, and so it feels like what I'm trying to do is less appreciated than ever before.
hmm. It's very topical of you, and we might discuss another wordsmith that felt a little jaded down the stretch as well. But firstly, yeah, let's speak on your retirement, hanging up your red pen, so to speak. Mentally, have you already started the transition? Oh, we got one person in here. Thank you, boss. Dr. Blake, where's your head at now?
Well, I'm just looking ahead. Two of my kids have their own kids on the way, and so we're starting to think about being grandparents around here, which is weird. I know I'm too young for it, but here it comes anyway. So that's a big part of it, is just spending time with the kids and the grandkids.
Yeah, you mentioned you weren't in Kansas at the moment. You're actually in Alabama. Is that right?
Yeah, North Alabama.
Alabama countryside behind you.
Yeah.
Let's keep it somewhat tight. A little bit of house cleaning before we start talking about the American, quote unquote. Um, MNU Twitter. I know you're out there. Let me shake you up, guys. Social media is not your website; it's your business card. You go to a party, you hand out your business card. Don't make me call. Don't make me call Rocky Lamar. Don't make me roust him. We'll get him on you. He knows how to do Twitter. Anyway, good times, MNU. Cheers. I guess it's a career for two. Um, talk Mark Twain a little bit. You know him quite well. Uh, as a person, let's start as a writer first. What did he mean to you personally?
Well, I think Twain was a genius of wit and humor. And I think you have to be smart to be funny. And I think that's what I love about Twain. I mean, he was a guy that was so funny that reporters would come to his door every morning and just say, "Can you give us a quote?" And he always would. And they put it in the newspaper. And we still read some of those quotes today. He was sort of like Ben Franklin that way. A lot of people think Ben Franklin's quotes are scripture, like a penny saved is a penny earned, but a lot of what Franklin said, we still quote without even realizing it.
Hmm. Indeed. Uh, I will ask your favorite Twain, maxim or whatnot along the way. But I think before we start proceedings proper, we have to acknowledge a Mark Twain tweet. I'm not sure if you knew he was on that platform. He
Yeah.
states a man can never be more truthful than when he admits himself a liar. Since you're the senior member here, I must ask you to be truthful in this moment and admit yourself a liar, Doctor.
Yeah, well, that's no problem for me, because I think we all lie to ourselves and to everybody in subtle ways, probably every day, if we're honest about it, whether it's a rationalization for something we did or didn't do. Um, and that quote you mentioned is a paradox, which to me is a sign of genius. Most people don't understand the idea of two opposing ideas coming together to make a truth the way Twain did, all the time.
Hmm.
So I love
Well, I
that
don't.
quote.
Sometimes that feels like fortune cookie wisdom. And I of course am your host tonight with Dr. Blake, and I too am a liar. I don't know if that's a liberating statement or one that kind of takes the wind out of your sails. How do you feel about it?
I
Just
think the
an honest
sooner,
word.
yeah, I think the sooner we all admit that we're dishonest from time to time. Nobody likes to think of themselves as dishonest, but I just think you have to be like, if your wife says, "Do I look fat in these jeans?" That's a great time to be dishonest. You
Lest
know,
I remind you, you just retired, so she'll probably catch that. Um, you have to spend a lot of time together. And that's, I guess, would you say Twain, he grew up poor, he ends up, accumulating wealth and losing it along the way. Is there a sort of honesty in his life that people understood in that time? Like to fail, to kind of do it publicly, that kind of thing?
yeah, I think so. And he was a terrible businessman. And I always enjoy reading stories of people's failures as much as their successes. It seems like he always invested in the wrong thing.
He
When
did.
he could have invested in Alexander Graham Bale, he went with the other guy. And it just seemed like he did that over and over. But he wrote about it in such a hilarious way that, he lives in infamy. And who cares if he failed in business?
Hmm. Indeed. Well, it kind of feels like a lot of times you don't get recognized for anything until you're gone. Hmm. I don't know. Next Twain tweet. A classic, a book that people love or praise but never read. Since you just stepped into retirement, is there any on your shelf that you're leaving for the last read per se?
Yeah, I think you're a Dennis Franzen fan, aren't you? The corrections, and I was thinking we had talked about that book, but yeah, I got plenty of holes in my literary repertoire that I hope to fill in retirement. I haven't read Frankenstein or what's that other monster story, Dracula,
What
and
about
I don't know that I will.
is it Frankenstein's monster? That's a female author in the early 1800s. Am I right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I forget
um,
her name.
Mary
That
Wollstonecraft Shelley.
There she is. Cheers, Mary. Yeah, no, I that book is on my radar too because that's fresh off of like I think one of the toughest eras, and I think people were trapped indoors for a long time for whatever reason. Um,
Yeah, that's how that book came about. They traded ghost stories and with Lord Byron and her husband, and
hmm.
you know,
I think if I have a book that I would save to last, and actually I've held on to a couple books because when you move, it always pares down. You loan books out, they never come back. You know that well. Um, I think the books that I held out and I'm reading now are simply like history books written about a character named Herod, who, for whatever reason, I have not read much on. And also, I'm dipping into the histories by Herodotus. So, if there's any Herodotus fans out there, reach out. That's obviously a joke. Uh, Twain said in a tweet once that never let schooling get in the way of an education. You are an educator. What's something that you can't learn in a classroom? Something you have?
well, I think finances are something you're never taught in the classroom. How to manage your money, how to invest, how to take chances. Not to keep going back to Ben Franklin, but there's a passage he wrote about where some of the Native Americans, the settlers, approached the Native Americans and said, "Why don't you let us educate some of your sons? You can send them to our schools." And the Indian chief said, "We've sent some of our sons to your schools, and when we do that, they come back and they don't know how to kill a deer anymore. They don't know how to skin a buffalo. They don't know how to ride a horse." And so he said, "Why don't you send us some of your sons, and we'll make them into men?" And I
Mm,
think that's a very American quote too.
Hmm.
because it touches on that idea of being able to tame the land and work hard and accomplish things rather than just stay in a room with your books.
Well, that's fair. And I think that that kind of lends itself towards. Actually, I just lost my thought. No, I think when you're talking about like a learned man versus a Native American who knows how to do these things, it's kind of interesting how these skill sets work in cycles. You know, there's refined periods of history, and then there's periods where you got to get your hands dirty, so to speak.
Yeah, I think so. And I read a little bit about intellectual history, and they say the intellectual history of America is non-intellectual because even our early intelligent people like Ralph Waldo Emerson and Henry David Thoreau advocated getting out into the wilderness, and they said,
Hmm.
if you read too much, you'll turn into a pygmy. You'll turn into a greenhorn and a tenderfoot. So get out into the woods and chop down some trees and live your life that way. And that's what's to me unique about American thought and literature is that idea. And Twain personifies that because he wasn't raised uh, to be an intellectual. He was a steamboat pilot. That was his ultimate dream. Was someday I want to be a steamboat pilot, and he was able to do that. And he thought, now I've arrived, and I'm rich, and I'm happy, and I'm doing what I love. But that was just the beginning for him.
Well, let me ask you about that because, like, there's that cliche line since Batman movies. I don't know if you caught it. If you live long enough, you see yourself become the villain. Twain started with nothing, hung out with common people, but he's also dropped with people down the stretch like Vanderbilt and Carnegie, whom we know as the Age of Barons. Those guys were nothing to play with. But what do you think? Did he, essentially a man of the world, well traveled, did he become an insider, an elite along the way?
I mean, in some respects he did, but what he did was so deceptively simple, I think. And he made fun of himself. He said, you probably saw this quote where he said, "Some great books are like fine wine, but my books are like water. But everybody drinks water." And so
Mm.
his books are accessible by the masses, but what he did. Uh, Intellectually and with his humor and his themes and symbols, those things
Well,
are something that are way more difficult than people think.
we'll get to his symbols in a bit. Just in case you're casually dipping into this live stream, talking to a recently retired professor of literature. Um, and we're talking Twain. Was he a real one? What does he mean to our history, especially in this late stage? Twain was a man who of the people, um, but as it got down the stretch, he got darker as he went. So that leads us to this Twain tweet. Don't what is it? What an education consists mainly of what we have unlearned. Um, America's taught us a lot about the world, but I don't know. In your opinion, what do we have to unlearn? I know I'm
Boy,
putting you on the spot.
that's a good one, Curtis.
Hmm.
Um, for me, I guess it's been the idea that the world revolves around me and that I matter a whole lot. And I think when I finally realized I don't matter that much, people aren't talking about me behind my back that much, it was very liberating for me. And it seems like education is all sort of designed to make you more intelligent or fill you with information. Um, but the real lesson in life is that if you can learn to put other people first, that's a paradox in itself. The only way for you to be happy is to seek to make other people happy, I think.
Well, as the story goes, Twain loses people along the way, and he seems to have almost an extraordinary amount of guilt, like almost an unfair amount of guilt he puts on himself. Do you see that as just a person who feels deeply, or was he grieving for maybe other lies he was carrying? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's hard to say. He had so many setbacks, and so many times you thought, boy, he'll never recover from this, and he would bounce back. And you know, when he went to Europe, the media over here said Mark Twain is dead, and that's when he had that famous quote about the rumors of my death have been greatly exaggerated. But he had this resiliency to him as well, even though you know his outlook became darker as he got older and lost loved ones.
Hmm,
He still had that undercurrent of wit. And you know, I think of comedians like Robin Williams and others who have said, you know, it's just a facade that the reason I'm funny is because I laugh to keep from crying, sort of a thing. And I think Twain did some of that as well.
so, among other things, he was considered the funniest man alive. That was dropped, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Huh. I guess he was a true comedian. Um,
yeah. To me, it's still funny today. When I read Huck Finn, I still laugh out loud at some of the crazy things, like his description of the funeral in Huck Finn, and
mm,
a dog gets loose and comes running in through and the way the Undertaker's so smooth and gets the dog out of there, and
I
it's
do.
just yeah, it's funny.
I remember that one. Twain also tweeted recently that I can live on 2 months, or I can live for 2 months on a good compliment. As we're kind of winding down, before we get to the dark Twain, I don't know, give some love. Who are you thinking about one day fresh from retirement? Give a good compliment to somebody.
Oh, well, I'm going to give you a compliment, Curtis, because you're a guy who never gives up. And you could put these podcasts out there, keep going on YouTube, and you got this creative fountain that keeps pouring forth. And it's impressive to me that you're
Huh.
still doing the comics and the Comic Cons. And I admire your spirit that way. So, how about that?
Well, what's your Venmo again? um, no, I didn't anticipate that. I don't know if I see myself as a resilient character. I just maybe I'm arrogant. I don't wanna quit. You know, I don't want to even if the
Well,
world is telling me it's something else, I don't want it to be it, I guess.
yeah,
Um,
I mean, you don't settle for that 9 to 5 job, and you,
oh,
you're you're gonna do something creative and interesting with your life, and I think that's cool.
well, thank you, Doc.
Yeah,
Right back at you. I'll send some love out to the people that support the people that are able to be creative. Out to my lady.
yeah,
Cheers. Yeah, no, to live with an artist, and you know, a lot of people don't want to say this is what I am. I think an artist is simply a person who's trying to tell the truth in an age when you know it's getting pretty dicey. But yeah,
yeah,
no, it's the
yeah.
people that stand with artists, I suppose. I like that.
Yeah, and the fact that a guy as famous as Mark Twain was would say something like that, I can live for a week on a compliment, just tells you how important it is to compliment the people around us because it's like oxygen, and I forget to compliment the people around me. But man, I love getting compliments too, and so that's a great lesson to remind everybody of is the importance of encouraging each other and giving compliments.
Word. And you know, in a very sneaky way, of course, we're telling a bunch of unassuming people about Mark Twain. But yeah, Doctor, I'm sure people will find their way into the comments. You know, I can't promote worth, but um, no, it's if you're a Mid American Nazarene, bump this. You've introduced people to a lot of words and a lot of solutions. So, and I could go on, but I'm not because we do have to face Dark Twain. We do have to face a mysterious stranger. Uh, Published posthumously. Is that how I say that?
Yeah,
He didn't
some
want it
say,
published. Is that right?
yeah.
Tells the story of him running into Satan.
Yeah, boy, it's been a while since I read that one.
Yeah,
Um,
we don't need to dip into it, but
but
just to kind of frame. Go ahead. Did you have words on it?
well, I'm just having to think back because it's been a while since I read The Mysterious Stranger. But yeah, that was a dark time in his life. Um, yeah.
Well, we don't have to dwell on it, except for Twain. Did oh, by the way, Jen's in the house. Thank you, Jen. Cheers. Um, what did do you think Twain was? Did he know about the occult? And if that answer is yes, the occult being symbols, secret knowledge within our society, etc. Overly blunt is in the house. What's up, brother? Um, yeah, your thoughts? You know him as a writer. We both know him from documentaries, etc. Did he carry secrets, and ultimately did that eat at him as well?
Yeah, it's definitely possible that he was dabbling in that kind of thing, and some of the other great writers like William Butler Yeats was deep into the occult, and I think that fueled his imagination.
Mhm.
Um, so it's really possible that Twain was into that kind of thing. I'm not really sure. I haven't read a lot about that aspect of his life. Have you been seeing some things like that about him?
Well, I think if you've done your homework, you know I'm the occult specialist, brother. Um, no, I think he did tip his hand. He wrote a letter deep in the game and called somebody an idiot of the 33rd degree. You can Google that up. So he was aware. He was aware. I'm gonna be on the fence right now. I don't like the company he kept, the Carnegies and whatnot, but I'm gonna say if you're a writer, if you're that worldly, those are just people you bump into, and you have to acknowledge symbols. You do, because it speaks to old worlds. Um, I think Twain knew that. Final Twain question, because we're pushing 22 minutes. Can you believe it?
Amazing.
Imagine if we would have had a third. We'll catch you. We'll catch the mountain man later.
Yeah.
Let's. Speaking of good mustaches, is Twain's what do you attribute his facial hair just not caring? Do creatives do they have to have a signature look? Is what I'm asking.
Yeah, and to me, it's all about commitment. If you're going to grow a mustache, you better have it for the rest of your life,
Why
right?
not?
Like, who's that actor that was in the Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze? He's always got
I'm with you.
you know, he's he's never without it, and when he shaves it, it's not right. So, he never shaved that mustache that I know of, and that's what it's all about. So I think about growing one from time to time, but I think if you do this, you have to keep it forever. Otherwise, you
Mm.
look like you know.
Yeah, I don't know if I can cut my hair again. You know, kind of grew out one day.
Yeah, it's a good look for you.
Oh, thank you, brother. What just before we kind of dip out, where can people find you post retirement, as it were? Well, let me update that banner. But yeah.
Pretty hard to find, I guess. Facebook.
Oh, come on, Doc.
I mean, I get on Twitter and read tweets, and I look at Instagram, but I'm not really active on those platforms. Should I be?
Understand. Platform wars currently happening. At least what I'm seeing. I don't know. If your Twitter's conspicuous, I'll definitely link you on this, and we'll see if Mid America's awake. But no, it's a pleasure, Doc, and it's an unexpected pleasure to catch you a day fresh of retirement. I was one of your students, and I learned how to live stream. So where
And
two or
I
more
was
are gathered.
yours. That's right. I was your
Yeah.
student in basketball, so we
Well,
helped
we
each
can
other.
talk basketball next time, I imagine. But thank you for the time, Doc.
Well, thank you. It's always a pleasure. I appreciate it.
And thank you for everybody that said hello. Cheers, guys.